Hi, all of you wonderful scuba divers out there. Welcome to the Scuba Diving Magazine podcast, where I break down the latest scuba diving news and things that have piqued my interest over the previous week. This week on the podcast, professional dive guides in the Philippines are in rather hot water after a tip-off that some of them are accepting payment for engraving names in coral, leading to authorities to quadruple the reward money for any information on the culprits. The actor-rapper LL Cool J has recently told The Guardian that the animatronic shark in the Deep Blue Sea movie almost drowned him during filming, and a former Navy diver has decided to become the first ever to swim the English Channel on his back. So the first news story is fallout from the carving of people's names onto corals in the Philippines diving destination of Bohol last week has continued, with the authorities now convinced that one or more local dive guides and boat operators have been collecting additional fees from tourists to create the underwater graffiti. One dive guide has reported to have admitted vandalizing corals. Allegedly, one dive guide is reported to have come forward and admitted to vandalizing corals. Damage to the reefs is illegal under the Philippine Fisheries Code, though it's not clear whether criminal charges will be brought against them. At least 13 people's names were found etched into corals at the Estaca scuba and snorkeling site off Puntad, formerly Virgin Island near Panglao, when an inspection was carried out at the end of August following a tip-off from a local PADI dive guide. A Korean tourist had posted a video on social media showing a guide vandalizing coral, and Bohol's governor offered a reward for any further information. Since then, the reward money has later been quadrupled to 200,000 pesos, which is about 2,700 British pounds. Backed by the governor, Panglao's mayor closed the site to tourist activities as of the 9th of September for at least 6 months and possibly more than a year because of this, forming part of the Panglao Island Protected Seascape under the expanded National Integrated Protected Areas System. The area's coral will need time to recover. The mayor also said that on the 5th of September, he personally questioned the unnamed guide seen in the video after admitting inscribing the name of a female guest onto coral at her request. He was warned that he could be declared persona non grata for his role in, quote, killing tourism. The Philippines Department of Environment and National Resources and the Bohol Provincial Environment and National Resources Office are now assessing the dive site, and the governor says that he intends to create a task force with powers to arrest to prevent similar incidents happening in the future. So interesting news, and as I said last week, something always comes forward. There's always someone recording these kind of things, and they managed to track down who it was. And it always just comes down to why. I mean, why would you pay someone to scratch your name into a coral? What's the benefit of that? It's like the tourist. It was a few months ago, and he was like scratching his name into the Roman Colosseum, I think it was. And it's just like, why? I mean, you're literally putting your name down to a crime, something that's something illegal. There are far better ways to be remembered in history. But yeah, it's interesting or it's nice to see that the authorities are really taking this seriously, and even creating a task force to look for these kind of culprits. The rapper-actor LL Cool J has recently sat down with The Guardian, stating that he narrowly avoided death whilst playing the role of Chef Sherman Preacher Dudley in the film Deep Blue Sea, recalling that an encounter with one of the remote-controlled sharks, quote, almost drowned me. In the movie, a group of scientists searching for a cure for Alzheimer's at an isolated research facility in the middle of the ocean are hunted by a set of genetically engineered mako sharks. They're larger, they're smarter, and yeah, it's. I remember when it came out. I think I had it on DVD or maybe even VHS, to be honest. It was a typical like shark flick, and in one of the scenes, the chef, the whole facility is starting to flood, and it's the sharks that are doing it so that they can reach so they can escape. And the chef, he's in his kitchen, and it's flooded. He's in like waist deep water, and of course there's a shark around, and the character is grabbed by one of the Makos, but he managed to escape it by stabbing it in the eye with his crucifix. He's named nicknamed Preacher, so of course he has a crucifix on him. And the actor said, quote, at the time the animatronic sharks weren't AI, they were controlled by a guy with a joystick. I don't think we even have AI sharks at the moment. I think it's all guys and girls with joysticks. But he goes on to say, he pushed the button, the shark grabbed my leg, they then called lunch, and the shark just parked me underwater. So it sounds like it was like clamped onto his leg, and then it just kind of like the deactivation mode, it just kind of like went limp and went down, but pulled him under the water. It's not entirely clear what had happened to the safety divers and other crew, but he said, quote, after I managed to pull my leg out and get out of there, there was one dude left on set sitting there with a cigarette, and he went, I guess you made it out, huh? Damn. You would have thought on like movie sets like that security, especially around water. I mean, you look at the extents that I had to go to personally to be able to just record video professionally underwater, and yeah, you got to do a whole HSE course and all that kind of stuff, whereas I'm a former instructor. I could teach people to breathe underwater, but I couldn't possibly take a photograph underwater and get paid to do so. Whereas this, it's just like, oh yeah, you know what, it's lunchtime, everyone gone. Where's the star actor of this scene? No, I'm sure he's already left. No, he's being held underwater by the animatronic shark. He went on to say, making that film was dangerous, with a lot of water flying around, but it was a great experience. I had a fun time working with Samuel L. Jackson. Watching him get eaten was my favourite part. But what wasn't mentioned in The Guardian was another piece of Deep Blue Sea trivia, including one of the other actors, Thomas Jane, who at one point was required by the director to swim alongside a real live shark. And according to IMDb, he was actually allowed to shoot this scene only once he had completed all his others. So they made sure they filmed the entire movie, and then to get this one shot with a real shark, they're like, yeah, let's do that right at the end, so at least if something happens to him, we still have the rest of the movie. Good Lord. No, if you are like doing any kind of scuba diving and any kind of like movies at the same time, just make sure that everything's done really safely. I remember talking with Liz Parkinson, because she worked as I think one of the like diving safety coordinators on the Avatar movie. And yeah, just safety is number one. I mean, it's James Cameron, so he understands the intricacies and the safety aspects of being underwater. But yeah, you got to look after your actors a bit better than that. A former Royal Australian Navy clearance diver, Ash Simmons, wants to become the first swimmer to cross the English Channel on his back. Rather than employing conventional backstroke, the former Chief Petty Officer plans to use a modified dolphin kick involving minimal arm use whilst facing skywards, similar to a style he learnt in the service. Simmons lives on Australia's Gold Coast, where he's currently training for the attempt, which is scheduled for next June when UK weather conditions would be optimal. He expects the 34-kilometre long crossing to take some 15 hours in water about 4 degrees Celsius, and as an ex-serviceman who has suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, is hoping to raise cash and awareness for the Navy Clearance Diving Trust, which he works for as a liaison officer. His target is 150,000 Australian dollars, which is about 77,000 British pounds, which will be used to fund a feature documentary of the crossing and the NCDT's work to be made by a US film director, with his half of the proceeds going directly to the trust. Quoting, "For over a decade, I suffered in silence, alone in the darkness of severe PTSD caused by many life-threatening events, including being blown up by a Taliban roadside bomb in Afghanistan." That's in his words on the donation appeal page. He also only narrowly survived a Taliban sniper attack, later clearing up the scene following a well-publicized incident involving 2 colleagues who were very badly injured by a bull shark during an anti-terrorism exercise in Sydney Harbour, was also said to have taken its toll on his mental health. Quoting, "I self-medicated with alcohol, which led to depression, and eventually one day I found myself considering the end of my life. I found strength that day. I needed to be here. I discovered my true mission in life to speak out and help those still suffering in silence. I can no longer serve my country, but I can serve those who are still holding the line, still protecting us. I found a new way to suffer in silence rather than at the bottom of a bottle. I'm now suffering in the pool, strengthening my body and more importantly my mind, training for the 34-kilometer channel crossing." So good luck to him. I'll pop links to the news article that will lead you to the Navy Clearance Diving Trust, where you can donate and follow his story. In the Maldives, an actual astronaut has recently hosted an island astronaut camp, offering guests an exclusive opportunity to discover pristine dive sites and explore the magical underwater world, all in the company of a NASA astronaut and aquanaut NicoleStudying. The event featured guided reef dives at the Paddy Coco Island Diving Centre, where Stott, who is also a Paddy certified diver, joined guests in underwater exploration. Guests also had the opportunity to dine with Nicole during an exclusive evening dinner under the stars. The house reef dives conducted for the Como Journey of Universe Under the Ocean were led by Paddy instructors. Guests explored Shambhala Reef and Bay Reef and witnessed a spectacular array of rich marine life, including black-tip reef sharks, Napoleon wrasse, hawksbill and green sea turtles, moray eels, oriental sweetlips, giant clams, Clark's anemone fish, cleaner shrimp, bannerfish, lionfish, butterfly, and Maldivian anemone fish. Afterwards, the veteran NASA astronaut shared fascinating insights from her 104 days working in space across 2 NASA missions and tales about the rigorous training astronauts undergo to prepare them for space. She also talked about the connection between the deepest oceans and the farthest reaches of space, 2 realms that are more alike than imagined. Nicole recounted her experiences aboard the ISS and her time living underwater on the Aquarius habitat, further deepening the guests' appreciations for the connections between space and sea. There was a bit of a push, or like a marketing push in the dive industry a few years back, like equating space to scuba diving or vice versa, and yeah, it's true, and that's where they do some of their training. Especially NASA. NASA has their ZBL, their Zero Buoyancy Lab, ZBL, I think that's it, and which is just a huge swimming pool, and they have mock-ups of the space stations and everything where they can practice in a neutral buoyancy. Is it NBL? Neutral buoyancy? I forget. But yeah, they work in what's closest to it. You get a bit more resistance compared to the vacuum of space in water, but you can still be neutrally buoyant and get that sensation of like floating, if that makes sense. And yeah, it is the closest that you can get to being in space, being underwater, just without having to sign up and become an astronaut. Awful news coming out of Jamaica, where the heartbroken uncle of Jamari Reed has described finding his nephew's remains after a shark attack. Jamari, who was just 16 years old, had disappeared from the popular tourist area of Montego Bay after going on a spearfishing expedition on Monday, the 26th of August. The teenager's remains would later be recovered after a desperate search a day later by a fisherman. Authorities would later report that Jamari's injuries were consistent with a shark attack. The teen's horrified uncle has now spoken out about finding Jamari's body in a devastating interview, saying the student was discovered, quote, without a head after the attack. Speaking in an interview with the Jamaica Observer, Robert Robinson, who has been a fisherman in the area for 28 years, said, quote, "When we found him, his hand was on one side and then we found his body on the other without a head." Robert added that after the teen's body had been brought to the surface by rescuers, a massive tiger shark had swam by them. Believing this to be the shark responsible for killing Jamari, Robert and the fisherman shot at the animal with the hope of being able to recover the rest of his body. However, they were unsuccessful. Now, I mean, if it's like the following day, I'd be impressed if it was still the same shark. I imagine it was just an inquisitive tiger shark in the area, so it's a bit unfair for them to assume that it's the shark that did it. It's believed that Jamari had attracted the attention of a shark after a successful catch whilst out spearfishing. It is a legitimate danger of spearfishing, especially in these areas, because that's what sharks key in on. If you've got fish blood in the water, then that's what they live on. They're going to search that out, and if you've got lots of it around you, that's why they say try not to keep the catch too close to you, just in case. And it's always worth sacrificing your catch as opposed to attracting a shark towards you. But if you are spearfishing, obviously do take care and do have that consideration. Keep your wits about you, keep looking around, and don't go out by yourself. It's always best to do it as a buddy pair, so that you do have a backup diver to help you out if you ever need it. And in some nicer news, divers hope to find the owners of a drone and its memory card of photos and videos that was found underwater at the bottom of cliffs. So members of the Caithness Diving Club made the discovery last weekend at Geo of Sclates at Dunscaby Head. They found I think it was a Mavic drone in the water on the bottom. It was quite inconspicuous because it's bright white plastic, and the club shared images showing a couple. They managed to get the memory card out and dry it off, put it in a machine, and they got some images from it. And they've shared images of a couple with their dog waving up to the drone, who they presume are the owners, or at least friends of the owners, and also a camper van with an Italian registration that they hope is from the owners of the drone. A spokesperson said the drone itself is obviously a write-off. It's been underwater for a while, but it would be nice to get the memory card back to the owners at least. The club said that its divers were well used to seeing shipwrecks at various sites along the coast, but they were surprised to find a drone. The machine is believed to have struck the cliffside before going into the sea. Divers brought the drone back to the surface in an effort to remove litter from the seabed. One of the dive team was able to recover the memory card, and that's where they obviously found the photos and the videos. Hopefully they'll be able to track down the owners. We get this quite frequently. I think the most interesting one that I've seen in the news is a prosthetic leg. I think someone found. Someone lost it. I forget how. I don't know how you lose a prosthetic leg in a lake, but yeah. And there are teams of divers who just do this. It's a little murky water here in the UK, because if you accept any payment, then you have to have a HSE license. But a lot of people just kind of do it for handshakes and whatnot, and just for doing a good thing. Lots of rings. Someone throws a ball in for a dog, and the ring slips off the finger. Then that's really hard to find. A friend of mine had to recover I think it was a remote control boat that had sunk in a lake, and managed to find that. But hopefully they'll be able to track down the owners, and they'll get that memory card and some of the photos and memories back. I don't think there's any new dive equipment. I myself got some new bits and bobs. I've got a pair of Scuba Pro S-Tech fins. I've been very excited to test them out, because they're the ones with one you can separate the blade from the foot pocket, so they're very easy to travel with, and they also have metal plates on the underside to adjust the buoyancy of them, and yeah, it's quite a unique concept. My cynical mind makes me think that it was just the Scuba Pro R&D department just testing the fins, and they're a bit too buoyant, so they just attach some metal plates just to see how much it would take to make them sink, and then they turned a bug into a feature. I honestly don't know if that's where it came from, but it's just where my mind goes. And also the new Ulex version of the Everflex 5mm wetsuit, which Ulex is a plant-based neoprene, so it's not petroleum-based or anything, or limestone-based. It's like plant-based, and I was expecting it to be quite stiff, because the very first Ulex wetsuit that I experienced was relatively stiff, and I didn't think too much of it. But this one is incredibly flexible. If you hadn't have told me it was Ulex, I would have just thought it was like the newest version of the Scuba Pro Everflex, and yeah, it's pretty cool so far. I think that's about it. I don't remember seeing anything overly exciting online about like new dive equipment. So let's dive into some Ask Mark questions. So Jen Malik 05S says, I'm doing my first liveaboard trip next year in the Galapagos. God, your first ever liveaboard in the Galapagos. That's going to be incredible. And can't decide if I should wear my dry suit or a thick wetsuit. For liveaboards, is one style dry or wet preferred over the other? In the Galapagos, it does get cold because you're like right out there. So I mean, personally, I'd bring my dry suit just because it's more like multifunctional. And I mean, like Galapagos, you're in like 7mm, and 7mm wetsuits, in my opinion, kind of suck because they're quite clunky and really buoyant. Whereas a dry suit, you can put whatever you want underneath, and you're dry, if that makes sense. I mean, the worst part of most dive trips is trying to get into a wetsuit for the second and third dive of the day, because they never really dry between dives. So yeah, dry suit would be my personal preference. It's just so much more comfortable, and you have a second buoyancy source. Mr. Phoenix 357 says, why not just use a necklace for your primary? That way, if there's a current or someone kicks it out of your mouth, it will save time having to look to retrieve it because it's on a necklace around your neck. You can. It depends on your donation method, basically. With a standard, I say standard, but like recreational octo setup, where you have a short primary hose that you breathe from, and then you have an octo that's on a longer hose down to your hip, then yeah, you can fit a necklace to your primary. A necklace is just a section of bungee that goes around the mouthpiece and then around the back of your head, so that if, as Mr. Phoenix says, if it does get knocked out of your mouth, it just drops down below your chin, you grab it, you put it back in. Job done. In my regulator setup, most of the regular viewers will know that I dive a long hose primary donate. So I have my alternate or my octo in a necklace under my chin, and that's where it lives. My primary, the one that I'm breathing from, goes on a really long hose, like 1.5 or 2 meter long hose, and then I'm breathing from that. If another diver is out of air, I donate the second stage that I'm breathing from. So if that has a necklace on it, that's just going to add extra, or at least an extra step to the donation method. I'm going to have to lift that necklace over my hood and over my mask, and then donate it. And then when they're grabbing for it, there's this extra like thing that can get caught on something. So I try to keep that as clean as possible. And then it's really not an issue. You yourself, after you've donated, you switch to your alternate, and the whole thing behind that is that at that exact time, you know that second stage is safe to breathe from. the one that's in your mouth, because you're breathing from it at that depth. You know there isn't like salt or not salt, silt build up inside or whatever. You know that cylinder is switched on and the other diver can get a breath immediately. Whereas if you pass an octo, there can be all sorts. There was a clip earlier this week that I saw, and they were basically proving that the purge button isn't enough to purge a spider out of a second stage, and it's just a horrific video for anyone with arachnophobia, because there's a spider inside of their second stage. They press the purge button and then they slowly lower it into water, and the spider just scurries out. Anyone with arachnophobia is like, nope. I'm always checking my second stage. Luckily, in this country, we don't get that. Or in my country, in the United Kingdom, we don't get that many spiders in second stages. But yeah, if you live in somewhere, I'd be tapping out my boots and my second stage just to check for spiders inside of them. But yeah, you basically want that diver who's been without gas for a certain amount of time to get that immediate breath. If you then switch to your alternate and that malfunctions for whatever reason, you've just taken a nice deep breath, so you've got plenty of time to then take that primary back and you can buddy breathe. But yeah, you don't want the out of air diver to then have that kind of experience. You just want them to be able to breathe. So yes, you can put a necklace on a primary. It depends on your donation method. Octane Games says, how reliable are secondhand computers and where's the best place to buy? They should be fine. It's the same with all second-hand equipment. It depends, really. The main things that I would be concerned about is, one, does the brand still exist? There have been some brands that have either disappeared through time by either going into bankruptcy or liquidation, whatever, or have been bought and assimilated by different brands. So there are computers out there like Subgear. Subgear was bought by SCUBA Pro and has now kind of disappeared. They just amalgamated it into the SCUBA Pro range. So yeah, double check that the computer is still available. The battery type. There are some older computers out there that have like the battery is literally glued into the actual casing, and they can be a real nightmare to find someone to replace the battery. Some might be faulty. I don't know. Some people do sell some rubbish stuff online. It's just one of those kind of judgment calls. The best thing to do, and I've seen other divers, is to like take a screenshot of the listing, upload it to one of the diving forums like Reddit or the dive forum or Scuba Board, and just say, hey, I found this. Is this a good deal? Just let me know, and you'll get some good opinions on there. But I mean, yes, you can. It's the same with all secondhand equipment. It depends. Ade Frutos 63 says, I recently bought the Luna 2. I'm very happy with its display, but I do notice it's a very conservative computer. Does this have to be with the algorithm set? Yes. What are the main differences between the ZHL 16 ADT MB PMG and the gradient factor version? So the ADT, what's that called? The adaptive something. That's their more like automatic kind of algorithm, where it takes in all the information and does it a bit more like prescriptively, if that makes sense. Whereas the GF stands for gradient factors. That will give you better control, if that makes sense. So yes, if you set the ZHL 16C bit is the 16 compartment algorithm. That's the base like Bielmann algorithm. PMG is predictive multi-gas, so that's if you're diving multiple gases. That's a Scuba Pro thing. So you're really coming down to the ADT or the GF, and the ADT, as I understand it. It's been a while since I read up on them. The ADT is a bit more adaptive, and like the computer makes a decision whether to become a bit more conservative or not, whereas the GF, the gradient factor, you set the high and the low, and you can choose how conservative or non-conservative it is. So yeah, just read up on gradient factors before you do anything, so that you understand exactly what the high and the low actually mean and how that affects your stops and everything. But yeah, that's the way to make it less conservative. And that's it for another week. There's going to be some changes on the websites going forwards if you're a regular visitor. So for anyone who doesn't know, that we basically have two websites. We have SCUBADiverMag.com and we also have DiverNet, and they both kind of do the same thing. And we kind of decided that there's no real point having two websites like doing the same thing and effectively competing against one another. So we're going to focus most of the articles and things on divernet.com and continue running with that, and we're going to slowly phase out SCUBADiverMag.com. The magazine's not changing, and the YouTube channel isn't changing or anything, so don't worry about that. But yeah, you might see over the next month or two that the websites are starting to change, and we're going to focus more on just a single one to make it bigger and better. But yeah, otherwise, head over to divernet.com. You can bookmark that page on your browser. Check out the latest news as it comes out, and all of our social media channels and whatnot. They're still going to be Instagram and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, most of it's going to be coming out of divernet.com. But yeah, otherwise, like, share, subscribe wherever you're listening to this. Thank you for listening, everyone, and of course, safe diving.